Welcome to Mind Set in Stone podcasts, where we dive deep into the most compelling books on the shelf. Join hosts Dave and Poppy as they uncover the stories, themes, and ideas that shape our understanding and inspire curiosity. Get ready to explore the big ideas that leave a lasting impact. Let's get started.
Hey there! Ready to dive into Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now? This book's all about spiritual enlightenment, but don't worry, we're not shipping you off to a monastery just yet. You actually shared this one with us. Said you were curious about finding peace in the everyday, and this book is surprisingly practical about it.
It really is. We'll be unpacking how our obsession with the past and future leads to suffering, and how living in the present moment, no matter what's happening, can lead to a sense of peace, even joy.
Okay, I gotta know this whole present moment thing. Tolle's not just talking about remembering to enjoy a slice of cake, right? What makes it so powerful?
You're picking up what he's putting down already. It's way deeper than that.
Yeah.
Tolle says our minds stuck in constant chatter are the biggest obstacle. He's not saying thinking is bad, but that we get so caught up in our thoughts we forget there's a whole deeper level of awareness, our true selves, beneath all that mental noise.
So it's like our thoughts are a radio station stuck on static, but we are the radio itself.
That's a great way to put it. He actually uses the example of a Zen master about to whack a student with a stick. If the student's truly present, they'd sense it and move. It's about being present enough to dodge the stick, metaphorically speaking, in our own lives.
Okay, now that's a visual I'm not going to forget.
Yeah.
But seriously, how do we actually tune into the present like that? Life's moving fast.
It starts with noticing when our minds pull us away. Tolle's big on paying attention to the ordinary, like really feeling the water on your hands when you wash them, instead of mentally replaying your to-do list. He calls this moving deeply into the now.
Interesting. It's like our minds are always on autopilot, so by focusing on our senses, we snap out of it.
Exactly. It breaks the cycle of constantly dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, which, as Tolle points out, is where a lot of our negative emotions come from.
So he's saying even those negative feelings are often rooted in our resistance to the present.
Exactly. He argues that true joy isn't about chasing happiness in external things. That's like trying to catch smoke. It's about connecting to the stillness within the joy of being, which he compares to that peaceful state of dreamless sleep.
Okay, so we're talking about tapping into something much deeper than just fleeting happy feelings. He mentions this idea of chi, or life energy. What's he getting at with that?
He likens chi to a river flowing back to its source, which he calls the unmanifested. It's like this universal energy we're all connected to. And he believes our bodies are the portal, not a barrier to experiencing this deeper reality.
He also talks about surrendering to the present moment even when things are tough. That sounds intense.
It's not about giving up. Think of it like this. If you're stuck in mud fighting, it only makes you more stuck.
Yeah.
But accepting you're in the mud lets you actually get unstuck. It's about choosing our response instead of being ruled by our reactions.
So with negative situations, it's about finding that place of acceptance first. That almost sounds counterintuitive.
It does, right. And it's a continuous practice, not a one-time fix. He tells this story about a butcher who says every piece of meat is the best, highlighting how powerful that mindset shift can be. It's not about liking everything that happens, but choosing how we respond.
It's like reframing the situation, finding a way to be okay with what is, even if it's not what we want. So is that it? Is that all we need to do to tap into this power of now?
Well, he certainly wouldn't say it's easy. He actually calls this loss of now the core delusion, this idea that we're not already whole and complete in this moment.
Wow, okay. So how does this all connect to actual enlightenment?
He suggests that enlightenment, the state of pure consciousness, isn't some far-off goal, but accessible in each moment. He compares it to dreamless sleep, where our minds naturally quiet and we merge with this source of all being.
That's wild. So are we aiming for a state where we're basically enlightened while awake?
Essentially, yes. He suggests practicing presence, just like we practice anything else, to bridge that gap between our waking and sleeping states. And there are a lot of unexpected ways to do this, which is what we'll explore next.
Okay. I am definitely ready for part 2. We're about to get practical with this power of now stuff.
You're ready to get practical with it? Because Tolle's got a whole toolkit for tapping into that power of now.
Lay it on me. What are we talking about here? Meditation retreats, chanting on mountaintops?
You laugh, but he'd actually say those work. But he emphasizes finding what works for you. And it can be surprisingly simple. Ever notice how your breath, it's always there anchoring you to the present moment?
It's true. I never thought about it like that. Breathing is kind of like a built-in mindfulness tool, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you don't need to make it some big ceremony. He says just bringing your awareness to your breath, even for a few seconds, can bring you back to the nick. Basically, when you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed.
So if my mind's racing, a few deep breaths can help hit the reset button. That's actually really helpful. What else is in this toolkit?
He also talks about engaging your senses. Remember that stop and smell the roses sign? He takes it to a whole other level.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How do we do that beyond, well, literally smelling roses?
He's talking about really experiencing your senses throughout the day. Savoring each bite of food, feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin, noticing the colors and shapes around you.
It's like we're so used to rushing through life, we forget to actually experience it. I can see how that connects to being present.
Right, and he says it helps us connect with that universal life force, that being we talked about earlier. It's like tuning into the energy that flows through all things.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got breathwork, sensory awareness. What about all the mental chatter? Any tips for quieting that down?
He compares the mind to a wild river, thoughts swirling like rapids. We can't always stop the flow, but we can choose to observe it without getting swept away.
So instead of being tossed around by every thought, we become the observer watching the river flow by.
Exactly. He says that detachment, that ability to observe without judgment is key. Because those thoughts and emotions, they're not you. They're just passing events in the vastness of consciousness.
That's kind of freeing when you think about it like that. I can see how it ties into this idea of acceptance too, right? Accepting the present moment, even if it's not all sunshine and roses.
Exactly. And he's clear, this isn't about liking everything that happens. It's about acknowledging the reality of what is without resistance so we can respond in a way that aligns with our values.
So whether we're facing a challenge or just doing the dishes, it's about bringing that quality of presence to the experience.
Absolutely. He uses this powerful metaphor. Imagine being stuck in the mud. Fighting it only gets you dirtier. But accepting you're stuck lets you take clear action to get unstuck.
Wow, that's a really vivid way to put it. So it's not about passivity, it's about choosing a more conscious response.
You got it. And that can even apply to our relationships.
Okay, now things are getting really interesting. We're diving into relationships next.
Relationships, yeah. Tolle doesn't shy away from the fact that they can be a breeding ground for losing ourselves in the mind's drama.
Yeah, no kidding. So how does the power of now apply to navigating those tricky waters?
He's big on what he calls addictive relationships, where we seek our sense of worth or completion from another person. He says it comes from that illusion of not being whole already, which, spoiler alert, we are.
That makes a lot of sense. So we're basically trying to fill a void with another person instead of looking inward.
Precisely. And he argues that true love, the kind that lasts, can only bloom when we meet each other from that place of wholeness, from the stillness of the present moment.
It's like you can't really love someone else fully if you don't fully love yourself, right?
He'd love that you picked up on that. He uses this amazing analogy. He compares true communication to two deep lakes merging their waters, becoming one. That's what it's like when two people connect from that authentic space.
Wow, that's beautiful. And a little daunting, honestly. So are we talking about finding enlightenment before even attempting relationships?
Not necessarily. He sees relationships as fertile ground for spiritual growth, even those addictive ones. They highlight our patterns, our triggers, the places where we're still clinging to the ego.
Okay, that takes the pressure off a bit. So it's less about finding a perfect relationship and more about using them as opportunities for personal growth, even when they're messy.
You got it. And speaking of messy, Tolle gets into some really fascinating stuff about how men and women approach this whole enlightenment thing differently.
Now that you mention it, he did talk about the female pain body, which sounds heavy, to say the least.
It is. He's talking about centuries of collective suffering carried within women, often manifesting as emotional reactivity or a tendency to identify with pain.
Okay, yeah, that resonates. He's not saying it's a life sentence, though, right?
Not at all. He believes women being naturally in tune with their bodies and emotions can actually be closer to that state of being. It's about consciously transforming that pain body, which he believes can make women incredible forces for healing and change.
So there's a lot of potential power in healing that collective wound.
Absolutely. And men, he argues, face their own hurdles. He sees them often getting stuck in the mind, overly identified with thoughts and control, afraid to surrender.
It's like they're trying to navigate life with a map, but they've forgotten they have a compass within.
Exactly. And it's not about one being better than the other. He emphasizes that both men and women need to integrate those masculine and feminine aspects within themselves to truly embody the power of now.
So it's a call to wholeness for all of us.
I'm curious, given how much he emphasizes inner peace, How does he view our role in creating a better world?
He's not about ignoring the world's problems. He believes our individual transformations have ripple effects. It's like that saying, be the change you wish to see in the world.
Exactly. He takes it even further. He says, each person awakening to their true nature influences the collective consciousness, literally creating a shift towards more peace and harmony.
So it's like that butterfly effect, but for consciousness. Even small acts of presence and awareness can have a huge impact.
He uses the image of a drop of water merging with the ocean. Each of us is that drop contributing to the vastness of consciousness.
Okay, now my mind is officially blown, so where do we go from here? How do we actually live this power of now stuff?
He'd say right here, right now.
Okay.
It's not about achieving some perfect state. It's about those small, daily choices. To be present with your breath, to truly listen to a loved one, to find moments of stillness amidst the chaos.
He makes it clear this isn't about escaping reality. It's about showing up for it fully and authentically.
You got it. He encourages us to become explorers of consciousness, to experiment with the practices and to find what resonates.
So it's less about following a rigid set of rules and more about approaching this journey with curiosity and an open mind.
Exactly. And he reminds us that true spirituality isn't about becoming some superhuman. It's about rediscovering the extraordinary within the ordinary, that's sacred in the everyday.
It's about finding those moments of awe and wonder in the simplest things.
Precisely. And remembering that the only moment we truly have is this one right now.
It's a powerful invitation, a challenge to step out of our heads and into the fullness of life exactly as it is.
And so our deep dive into the power of now comes to an end.
It may be the end of this deep dive, but it feels like the beginning of a much larger exploration. Thanks for joining us as we unpacked this powerful message. And to you listening, may you find moments of peace, joy, and presence right here, right now.
We hope you're leaving with fresh insights and a spark of inspiration. Remember to subscribe, leave a review, and check back for more episodes as we dive into new worlds of thought, one book at a time. Until then, keep your mind set in stone and your curiosity open. This has been a Big L Riz Media podcast, where big ideas meet lasting impressions.